Hidden in Ikana Canyon behind a waterfall, there lies a shrine. A secret shrine built by a tribe in worship to an ancient dragon god, and later used in an attempt to raise the dead. If you think this theory sounds nuts, that's because it is. And believe me, it's just as convincing as it is crazy. Questions such as, what is this dragon, what are these masks, and even who is the Poe Collector can all be answered with this one theory. Stick around, I think I'll have you convinced by the end of this video. The Secret Shrine is a mini-dungeon in Ikana Canyon, arguably the most obscure mini-dungeon in any Zelda game. It's a mini-dungeon that requires the Zora mask to swim to, light arrows to enter, and at least 16 whole heart containers to complete. Yeah, that may be the reason not many people remember it. The goal of the mini-dungeon is to face 4 different previously defeated mini-bosses in a rematch in each of the 4 rooms and defeat them, putting them to rest. As you can see, the shrine is full of imagery and symbolism that, at a first glance, seems foreign and out of place. There are heart-shaped masks hanging everywhere, as well as depictions of a dragon, spirals, targets, and all sorts of other oddly shaped scribblings and engravings. Some of these shapes look like eyeballs, some look like arrows, some are just seemingly random lines, while others are more obvious and represent specific things like fire. In other words, this place is an absolute mess when it comes to symbolism. But I think I have this case cracked. Let's begin with probably the most interesting detail of the secret shrine, and that is the mysterious dragon. There is a dragon depicted in each of the 4 chambers of the secret shrine, as well as on every door. It's a light-colored dragon with a large mouth and fins. There are also banners hanging in some of the rooms with what appears to be the same dragon swimming in a body of water, reflecting across its surface. I have to admit, this dragon had me stumped, as I couldn't recall any dragon being in Termina. Of course, other Zelda games have dragons that could potentially match this one, Farosh from Breath of the Wild being the most notable. However, we have to remember that this is Termina, not Hyrule. This is a completely different dimension with a different history. Farosh is unlikely to have existed in Termina, since, for example, other beings like the Garo Master only exist in Termina, and not Hyrule. Therefore, I decided to rule out Farosh or any other dragon that exists outside of Termina. Some might now be saying, well, the Majora's Mask manga says that Majora was once a dragon. Could it be Majora? The answer to that is also no. The manga, while creative and full of colorful ideas, is not canonical to the games. As a matter of fact, the Majora's Mask manga in particular goes against many established in-game facets. So, if it's neither a Hyrulean dragon nor a Majora, what dragon could this be? That's a good question. I decided to look through the game's dialogue, and there just so happens to be 2 mentions of a dragon. Both mentions are about the same thing, the cloud over Great Bay Temple. And it's when Avail, the chief of the Gerudo Pirates, describes the cloud over the temple as being a dragon cloud. What's more, in the Japanese version of the game, she describes it as a dragon god cloud. And what are shrines built for? That's right, worshipping gods. This would certainly be enough to put 2 and 2 together, I think. But there's even more. Some translations of the Japanese text that says dragon god cloud actually translate the phrase to Ryujin cloud. What is a Ryujin, you might be wondering? It just so happens to be the dragon god of the sea, lauded by followers of the Japanese religion Shintoism, which Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator and producer of Zelda, just so happens to be one of. As the dragon god, or Kami as it's known in Shintoism, of the sea, you might expect the dragon to have, fins or something? Ah, right. There are fins on the dragon in the secret shrine. Still not convinced the dragon's Ryujin? Maybe the fact that Ryujin is described as having an exceptionally large mouth will. Or how about the fact that Ryujin is said to live in a palace named Ryugujo that contains 4 different chambers, and that the secret shrine also has 4 different chambers? Still not enough, huh? How about the fact that sea turtles were said to be servants of Ryujin? And who takes you to Great Bay Temple? A giant sea turtle. Still not convinced? How about the story of Ryujin that says he destroyed ships in a hurricane? Not at all dissimilar to the Gerudo, whose ships were destroyed by the hurricane cloud surrounding Great Bay Temple. Or how about, you know what? I think I made my point. The dragon depicted in the secret shrine is undoubtedly Ryujin, the Shinto dragon god of the sea. This also ties the depictions of Ryujin to only one tribe in Majora's Mask, the Gerudo. Keep in mind that this is not the first time that Shinto beliefs have made their way into Zelda games, although this would be the most flat-out example. So we know who the dragon is, and that the Gerudo most likely built the secret shrine in worship to this dragon. But what about all of the other symbolism? Things get really weird from here on out. Let's begin with the masks that adorn the entire shrine. Keeping with the theme of Shintoism, these mysterious masks are strung up in a very similar fashion to shimenawa. Shimenawa are ropes decorated with paper ornaments called shide that are used to ward off evil spirits, but can also be used to summon kami spirits during rituals. And who could have guessed these shimenawa are used in shrines? So we can guess the purpose of these mask ornaments, but what do they represent? Zeldapedia states that such masks are not seen anywhere else in the game. I'd beg to differ, in that we see something incredibly similar to the face on these masks elsewhere in Ikana. Can you guess what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the same exact faces on the headstones of the Ikana royal family members' graves. Embarrassingly, this took me way too long to realize, but as soon as I did, the pieces started to fall into place. I then checked out the rest of the graveyard, and sure enough, many symbols found in the secret shrine are also found in Ikana graveyard. How about this eye? Or this target? Or this flower symbol? Or whatever the heck these other ones are. Admittedly, I was also stumped by the art style of the symbols in the secret shrine before I checked the Ikana graveyard. The symbols in the secret shrine all have these weird dots and dashes surrounding them, just as the symbols in the graveyard do. Okay, so this answers the question of where the symbols came from, but what do they mean? As far as I can theorize, these symbols were used in some kind of ritual that would restore the lives of the Ikana royal family. The fact that the masks bear the same face as the Ikana royal family's headstones would seem to support this hypothesis. But if this is true, who was the one to attempt such a ritual in an abandoned Gerudo shrine? Alright, let's think about this logically, starting from the beginning. Who is buried in the graveyard? Well, it's confirmed to be the dead members of the Ikana royal family. When did they die? Most of, if not all of them, died in the Great War of Ikana. Okay, and who from Ikana would be alive after their deaths? We know that Sharp and Flat were, but I've already made a theory about them, so they're out of the picture for this one. The only person that really leaves would be the Gravekeeper. And who was the Gravekeeper at the time of the Great War of Ikana? Dampé's father. Dampé's father is only mentioned once by Dampé himself. Speaking of Skull Kita, the commander of Ikana army whose remains block the way to the captain's hat, Dampé tells Link, "My father once said that was all that was left of the former royal soldier who once guarded this graveyard. Even though he is dead, his remains still block the way. In a sense, he is still guarding the royal family's treasure. He must have been a fine soldier indeed." From this dialogue, we can deduce that Dampé's father witnessed the death of Skull Kita and the rest of Ikana's royal army. How else would he know of Skull Kita's aptitude as a soldier, or that Skull Kita once guarded the Ikana graveyard and the royal family's treasure? So yes, I am proposing that Dampé's father was the one who repurposed the secret shrine and made it into a grounds for rituals, in the hopes of bringing the Ikana royal family and soldiers back to life. But why? To what end would Dampé's father attempt such a thing? I suppose it's time to tell the full story of the secret shrine and all of its dark history, as I see it anyway. Buckle up, this is a wild ride. It all started with the Gerudo tribe. Years before the Great War of Ikana, they had once been a peaceful tribe of warrior women and followed their god Ryujin, the dragon god of the sea. They were pirates, and as such, would frequently travel to distant parts of Termina in hopes of bartering with other tribes. At that time, they had no dedicated place of worship for their god Ryujin, but found the location behind the waterfall of Ikana River to be the perfect place for such. The Gerudo would later make this location a shrine built to Ryujin. For years after, they were at peace with Ryujin, That was until Majora's Mask was brought into the world. The mask spread its influence over the land of Termina and affected those closest to Stone Tower Temple, where I theorize the mask was created. Check that video out if you haven't already. Due to the close proximity of the shrine to Stone Tower Temple, the Gerudo women became volatile and violent and began plundering goods from the Ikanans. This led to Skullkita, commander of Ikana army, protecting the treasure of the Ikana royal family in hopes that the Gerudo or any other tribe would not steal it. Ryujin became displeased with the Gerudo due to their increasing greediness and subsequently acted against them by causing their waters to become dangerous by sealing off Great Bay Temple with a hurricane-like cloud, a temple that had regulated and refined the waters of Great Bay. Upon seeing that Ryujin was no longer with them, the Gerudo abandoned their shrine to him out of spite. The Great War of Ikana followed soon after, and was brought about by Majora's evil power emanating from the open door of Stone Tower Temple. The war ended with the death of the Ikana royal family and all its soldiers, as well as the sealing of the Stone Tower Temple door. Being a greedy gravedigger by nature, Dampe's father realized that the royal family's treasure was impossible to attain without the help of the royal family, who were now all dead. So, knowing that there was an abandoned shrine at the foot of Ikana River, Dampe's father entered into it, hoping to resurrect them and gain their favor. He placed masks in the shrine for each of the Ikana royal family members and soldiers who had fallen, and scattered about Ikanan symbols in the hopes that these charms would reanimate the fallen. He even set up sacred pillars to Skullkita. Eventually, he realized this attempt was futile, as the kami spirits within the shrine had left with the Gerudo and began trying to reach the treasure a different way. This did not work either, leading Dampe's father to die in his final attempt to get to the treasure, orphaning Dampe, who would later become a greedy gravedigger like his father. With his face having been singed off from the fire, Dampe's father became an undead entity similar to a Po, filled with regret, now vowing to put other wandering spirits to rest. Yes, I believe Dampe's father became the Po Collector, the very same Po Collector that we see sitting at the entrance to the secret shrine. The very same Po Collector who bears the symbol of the Ikana royal family as a reminder to himself to never selfishly attempt to play God ever again. Afterwards, Link comes along and is able to restore purity to the waters of Great Bay and put Dampe's father to rest. And that is the history of the secret shrine. Yep, this theory is utterly insane, but also rather convincing if you ask me. Let me know what you think of it, and I appreciate you sticking around through this entire video, as crazy as it was. I thank you for watching, and subscribe for more, my Hylians.